following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
You're listening to the Sabrecast, brought to you by Better Live Than Dead. And now your hosts, Brayton Wilson and Ryan Wolfe.
And with that, we welcome you to the Sabrecast, Season 2, Episode 3. We call this one Training Camp Returns. Powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. I am Ryan Wolfe at Wolfe BLTD, joined in the flesh in the pizza basement by Brayton Wilson at
Pizza Basement.
At BJ Wilson WGR.
Got some NFL Network in here, even though we're not talking football.
Well, I don't have NHL Network on my Fubo, so.
Well, that's unfortunate. That's a shame.
Not to mention, if we turned it on, it would just be infomercials.
Go complain. That's very true. Go complain to Fubo TV and say, hey,
it would.
Hey, I want NHL Network.
It'd be that infomercial where it's the lady who looks like she's vaping, but it's like a nostril thing, but it looks like she's just trying to vape through her nose hole.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
She's getting rid of all the mucus in her nose.
It's like a water bong, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, anyways.
And then they have the other guy who's just like, oh, this is the best product I've ever had.
Flex Seal! That's that guy, too. That's always on.
Hey.
You know what the worst is? When it's like 3 a.m. and you're in bed and you're like, you just randomly wake up and you're all disheveled, and there's someone on TV like, hi! Buy Flex Seal! And you're like, what the hell?
Hi, Phil Swift here for Flex Seal.
Exactly.
The quick coating, bonding, sealing product that you can, I don't know.
It'll goop up your holes. Anyways,
that's a great way to start the podcast.
You can hear this podcast on BetterLiveThanDead.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube. Wherever you can listen to a podcast, you can listen to this podcast. If not, let us know. Training camp begins today, September 13th at the time of recording. Hockey's back, man. First day, officially in the books. Overreactions are running wild like WWF-style Hulk Hogan, man.
That they are.
Excuse me, it's wild out
Line reactions.
Look at. Good friend of the pod, Chris Ostrander, points out that you never put any stock into the first day of training camp lines. I understand that, but my argument is we've been waiting for live hockey for months now, and this is the first thing we get.
Right,
so we're going to talk about
especially if you didn't check out the Prospects Challenge
which Brayton
past week.
Which Brayton just finished an article about.
Yes, that I did. I know it's a week later than when they started, but at the same point, I have a life. I have things that I have to do, and that I just celebrated my 4-year wedding anniversary yesterday.
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
I would have wished you a happy anniversary, but Brayton didn't invite me to his wedding.
Well, listen, okay. I mean, when Ryan and I first met, we weren't like
Brayton did not like me.
No, that's not the case. No, it's like we weren't like as close of friends as we are now. Like, I mean, Ryan and I. We have a lot in common, more than we ever thought we did.
We were dudes, but we weren't bros. Now we're dude
right.
bros.
We were more like work colleagues and over more like internet work colleagues because we all really didn't see each other when at the time we were at Sabres Hockey Central.
That's fair.
So then we go to BLTD. We started up together, and then next thing
that's a funny story.
we see each other more. We hang out more. Yeah. And then the Rochester Americans season last year when I was doing their broadcast, we would hang out like every other weekend, which was
we're close enough
freaking sweet.
We're close enough that Brayton called me this afternoon and said, "Hey, where are you? I'm inside your house and you're not here." I think that says about all you need to say.
Yeah.
But anyways, congratulations.
He didn't even need to be here, but thank you. I appreciate it. And I know that you and your wife had a wedding anniversary like 2 or 3 months ago.
2 months ago.
A very belated congratulations on your 1-year anniversary.
Thanks.
Even though I did text you and say that.
I appreciate that
to your face.
Well, hey, we've been busy. I got stung by a bee yesterday.
Congratulations.
You got hurt recently.
Yes.
Multiple times.
Yeah, multiple times. One which has to result in some pretty significant surgery.
You know, is what it is.
Yeah.
It's just another day at the. Do you have good health insurance? If you don't mind me.
I'll get back to you on that.
That's the first thing I thought of was like, that's how old I am. I'm going to be 28 here in a handful of weeks.
Do you have your AARP card yet?
I'm getting there. Look at if I make it out of the 27 club, I'll be perfectly fine with that. But
yeah, let's just get to the podcast. I'm sure that
you tell me I got hurt, and the first thing I think of is, does he have good health insurance? That's how old I am. So. Speaking of health.
Stop talking like you're old. Just get to the podcast. I want to hear your hockey takes. Your hot hockey takes.
Look, we're rolling like a BLTD podcast into a Sabrecast today. We kind of do whatever we want. We're drinking some Oktoberfest. We're hanging out in a basement. It's a good time. But starting off with the three big things. The first thing, for me, Brayton, training camp already has me wondering. It's been one day, like we said, and the lines came out, and they were something else, man.
Hot fire.
We saw Jeff Skinner apparently playing on the right side. Jack Eichel, Jimmy Vesey, Connor Sherry on a line. Casey Middlestat, Sam Reinhart, TJ Smith together. And here's my thought behind that. I'm not putting much stock into it. Don't get me wrong. But it's always, especially with the new coaching staff, it's always a nice way to look into their thought process and try to figure out where they're going with things. And it being day one, and seeing the Eichel, Skinner, Reinhart line not only broken up, but all three players are on individual lines. I mean, we'll get to the explanation from Ralph Kruger in a second, but it was weird. It was very strange to see that they were spread out, and not even Eichel and Skinner coming out together. It was very, very intriguing, if nothing else, Brayton, to see that on day one.
Yeah, no, I mean with these lines that came out day one, you kind of look at them and you think, okay, there's some interesting combinations that you would think might be a good way to start the season. Like, for instance, a line with C.J. Smith, Casey Middlestat, and Sam Reinhart. I mean, it's interesting because C.J. Smith, this is going to be really his one shot that he's going to get to really make an impression and try and make the NHL roster right off the bat, which I think he's done enough to earn a spot. Is he a top 6 forward? I don't know. I mean, in the AHL, he certainly was. He was a top-line left winger, but can he come to the NHL and be something similar to that? Not sure. He's definitely a bottom. He's a depth guy for sure. But
and this is something you can verify too. I think C.J. Smith may need to clear waivers.
Yes, I think he does. I think he does.
That could certainly also kind of
push.
push.
Let me just double check with Cap Friendly because Cap Friendly usually has this stuff.
That could push the hand. I mean, right now looking at the lines, like I said, it seems clear that they're going to give a guy like you've got Rasmus Asplund and Victor Olofsson with Marcus Johansson. You've got Curtis
and
Lazar.
And they're starting Olofsson on the right side at first. I think he did go back to the left side, and Johansson did the right side, but still.
And then Sherry and VC were also switching sides as well. Then you have Skinner Rodriguez and Curtis Lazar of the Ottawa Senators.
Let's see here.
It's
according to Cap Friendly, CJ Smith is not waivers exempt, so he would have to clear waivers to go down.
So that could certainly also play a factor into his status as well.
For sure.
The one thing that Mike Harrington pointed out is that Ralph Kruger said the first 3 days and first 2 games will be to spread the veterans around. The goal is to see, I would presume, because this is one thing I saw on Twitter too, and I apologize, I don't remember who said it to me or said it on Twitter, but you know what you have with Eichel and Skinner, you know what you have with Eichel, Skinner, Reinhart, so why not spread them out?
See what they can do with a bunch of the younger guys, and the younger guys respond.
Exactly, and it brings me to my first thought here, and first question for you, Brayton.
Yep.
Do you ultimately think that maybe there's an outside-of-the-box idea that we've not seen yet? We've always seen them do, Eichel and Skinner apart, but Skinner's with Reinhart or Eichel's with Reinhart or Skinner's with Eichel, whatever it may be. But we've never seen it where they've given each player their own line. Maybe that's a solution because we know what's the one thing the Sabres have struggled at? Depth scoring. So maybe if you spread the scoring out among the lines, maybe there's an answer, or maybe we're just doing what hockey fans do the first couple of days of training camp,
overreact.
And we're looking way too hard. Yeah, we're seeing the smoke signals, and we're reading way too much into it.
Yes, exactly. I think that looking at these, again, it's some things where it's like, okay, some of these pairings might work, some of these trios might work. I think the trio that would work maybe most logically would be the Smith, Middlestat, and who's on the right wing there? Reinhart line. And then, you're looking at the second. I mean, VC, Eichel, Sherry might not be a bad combination. I mean, I mean, it looked like a couple of times it was Sherry on the left wing and VC on the right wing. I think they're doing that a lot with this training camp too, seeing who can go from the left wing to the right wing and vice versa to see who they have the availability to do that with. But some of these combinations,
the right side is struggling.
Right, exactly. And some of these combinations could work. I think the Johansson, Asplund, Olofsson line is intriguing, but yeah, I mean, you're trying to find out certain combinations, and they know some combinations are going to work. Of course, you obviously mentioned the Skinner and Eichel combination, Skinner, Eichel, Reinhart combination would work, but I think Reinhart's going to get his own line this year. I think Jason Botterill has been very adamant with the point that Reinhart can carry his own line, and he has the confidence that he can do it.
And really, you have to with the scoring troubles as mentioned with the Buffalo Sabres. You have to spread it out because it's nice to put them all three on the top line, but then if your second line coming out, is a struggling case in Middlestat or whoever, you're not gonna have a good time.
No. I mean, again, these lines could be totally different 1 week from today.
Absolutely.
Because you're already gonna have three preseason games through at that point. I think the third one would be a week from today.
I mean, looking at it,
check the schedule again.
Looking at it, I think for me, the one big thing that kind of stuck out to me, it wasn't Victor Olofsson. I mean, Curtis Lazar with Jeff Skinner, that was, and Evan Rodriguez, that was a little interesting, but I think that's just spreading out to see who is what. For me, seeing Rasmus Asplund pushed into the, I guess, hypothetical top four lines, that's big. I mean, Brayton, you spent a lot of time down in Rochester this last season.
Yep.
It was no secret that the first half of the year, to Asplund kind of struggled to find to not necessarily find his spot, but to get his feet under him in the North American game.
Yeah, to get himself comfortable playing in North America.
But the second half, he did do a lot better.
Second half, he was exceptional with his play. And not only that, I mean, he earned the trust of Chris Taylor enough where Taylor was throwing him out there in every situation you could think possible. Power play, penalty kill, last minute of play situations when you need to get a goal, when you need to kill off, a penalty, or you need to preserve the lead, or I guess you could say force overtime too. But I mean, he was getting those opportunities, and Chris Taylor really trusted him. And then you saw the Prospects Challenge too. He was throwing Rasmus Asplund out there in just about every situation, giving him opportunity to really step up. And I thought that Asplund was maybe one of the better Sabres prospects to come out of that tournament. But he's certainly a guy that I think has a very underrated chance of making the roster from day one. Because again, the center depth on this roster in the NHL level is shaky at this point. I guess you could say shaky. Would that be a fair assessment?
I would say so. I mean, because I'm looking at the list of players they have in camp and thinking just off the cuff here. When you look at the center position,
I think Middlestat's going to be your second line center to start the year.
I mean, if a guy like Asplund is a numbers casualty of a guy, where you say, okay, we're going to keep C.J. Smith, so we got to send someone down who can go down with no problem.
Right.
A guy like Rasmus Asplund may be one of the first ones to go because, unfortunately, he has that contract availability to go down without waivers.
Yep.
But, I mean,
sort of like a Henry Jokiharju situation. I know we'll get that.
Do you want to? Do you want to run the risk of? And again, I'm just throwing hypotheticals out there. But do you run the risk of keeping a Rasmus Asplund on your roster and then waiving a Johan Larsson or Zemgus Girgensons?
Absolutely.
With the potential of losing them, and then if you lose them and Asplund struggles, you're now 1 foot in a grave without another guy to replace him with? Or do you say, we'll give a Larsson or Girgensons a shot first. Yeah, we know what we've got with Rasmus Asplund or whomever it may be.
Yeah.
Say for instance, I mean, we've all kind of written Victor Olofsson into the lineup with Penn at this point, but say for instance, God forbid he comes out and struggles in camp, and they say, look, we want you to go to Rochester and play 15, 20 games and kind of prove to us that you're really ready to go, and last year wasn't a fluke or whatever, which I don't think it was.
No, I don't think so either.
Maybe they say that, and then they, because they say, hey, look, you've got waivers eligibility. You're ineligible. I'm sorry, you're ineligible.
It's difficult because
but the numbers do come into play.
Right, exactly. For Asplund, I think the best thing for him would be to go back to Rochester for at least half a season, get your first line minutes, get in there and really show that you are ready to take the next step. I think he's almost there. It's just he's not quite there yet. Go back to Rochester, really put up some good performances and play like you did towards the end of the season. Don't play like playoffs Rasmus Asplund, where he missed a complete wide open net, I think on 2 separate occasions in the playoffs, and then was just not great in the playoffs. But go down there, show that you're first line capable, at least in Rochester, and able to dominate down there, playing on a line with, I don't know, Andrew Ogilvy and...
insert name here.
Yes, insert name on the left wing or something like that. But I think that's where he probably best fits. But I mean, hell, if he comes out and he really impresses and can prove to everyone that I'm ready for the NHL right away, I belong here, by all means, have him be there and be your fourth line center, even your third line center at this point. Because then by then next year, when Dylan Cousins might be ready to make the jump to the NHL full time, Cousins is probably your third line center, and then Asplund can swap down to the fourth line, and your fourth line center this year is, I don't know, Johan Larsson or fill in the blank. It's not going to be Vladimir Sobotka. That's
a black hole.
That Vladimir Sobotka might be equivalent to a black hole, but it's interesting to see how some of these younger players are going to pan out with the roster makeup this year, just because some of these guys are actually going to legitimately be able to push for a roster spot, and other guys are in the category of, are they pretenders or contenders to make the roster spot? Whereas I think like Olofsson should be a lock to make the roster just because of his scoring abilities and what he can do offensively. And then Rasmus Asplund, I think, has a legitimate chance because of the way that he developed last year. And if he can continue to develop that way and continue to grow and prove to the organization that he should be here, then so be it. Like, let him stay. I mean, if you have to send him back after a little bit, fine. Because I don't think Rasmus Asplund's going to be the Luke Adam type of player where he starts the year here, then goes down, and then just completely goes to you-know-what. I think that Asplund has the right mentality. He's got the right mindset of what it takes to be a professional in hockey. I mean, he played a lot of years in the Swedish Hockey League as a professional. So, again, that's an interesting situation. There's a couple of other ones, but yeah, I mean, give it another week and a half to see where more of these competitions play out, and I think that at that point we're going to be able to really have a good spot to put together this roster.
Absolutely. After the first couple games and seeing how things go together, seeing how Ralph Kruger adjusts, it'll give us a really good idea too of I know he coached in Edmonton, so you can kind of work off of that, but seeing him in Buffalo, seeing him work with these players and seeing what his mindset and kind of where things go from here, it'd be nice to have a good idea of where this team's going to go in camp. But I want to look at defense now because you did mention that. I know you wrote in your article that we jokingly talked about.
That's available at WGR550.com, by the way. Shameless plug. Sorry.
Plug, very cheap plug.
Sorry.
You're all good. Looking at the defense, they had some interesting pairs. The main roster players that we're expecting, you've got Marco Scandella and Colin Miller, Henry Jokiharju, Rasmus Ristolainen, Casey Nelson with Brandon Montour, Jake McKay with Will Borgen, and then Rasmus Dahlin with a prospect. But obviously Dahlin's going to make the roster, so that gives you a good idea of just, again, they're trying to spread the wealth to see what they can come up with and see what players do when given the proper talent around them. But Brayton, I know you had a couple things you want to mention about some defensive prospects, so I will concede the floor to you.
I mean, I'll talk about a couple of the guys that were at the Sabres Prospects Challenge and that were eligible, that are eligible to probably make the roster this year. Well, I think there's a couple guys that I think from that challenge could be eligible to make the roster. Obviously, the glaring one is Henry Jokiharju, who we just acquired from Chicago. The Sabres did acquire from Chicago. And he certainly was a guy that, how he was advertised, that's exactly how he came out. Good puck mover, good skater, really calm, cool, and collected in both ends of the ice. He's got the vision to be able to jump up into the play when he's able to. He's got the smarts to jump back into the defensive zone when he has to, and just a really nice, prototypical type of defenseman that a lot of NHL teams are looking for nowadays. I think he fits that mold. Unfortunately for his situation, does he have a spot on this roster right now, or does he have to go back to Rochester? And I know that your colleague Chad D. Dominicis from Die by the Blade is having horrific nightmares with the thought that, oh God, Henry Jokiharju could go and start the year in Rochester along with a guy like Lawrence Pilot, which I don't think that's necessarily a terrible thing. It's not ideal.
No, I think Pilot ends up in Rochester just because
he comes back and he needs to get back into game action. He'll start down there, but when he's fully ready and healthy, then the question becomes, okay, should he become full-time NHLer, get called up and stay there, or is it just going to be a situation where, okay, he's going to kind of have to
disrespectful
wait for a spot to open? Yeah, I know, I just yawned. Sorry.
Clearly you're bored with the Henry Jokiharju.
No,
Mark it down. He's bored with him.
Hey, listen, when you get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning every day.
I understand, man. I worked hard all day today. I was so relaxed at work that I don't even know if I actually.
Except I didn't technically work a full day today because I had jury duty today.
That could be a mental work day, though. But yes, I think Henry.
Yeah.
I think Henry Jokiharju could be another one of those guys where a number. Again, is he NHL ready? Hell yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Could he play big minutes? Hell yes.
I mean, especially if he's playing with a guy like Rasmus Dahlin.
Could he be
Yeah.
could he also be a victim of a numbers crunch? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
The one thing I want to mention, though, you look at guys like Zach Bogosian. We heard today, Ralph Kruger says that Zach Bogosian's workouts have only been limited to exclusively off ice, and there's no timeline to return. Should have a better idea in the next few days, but he won't be returning, quote, in the near future. So that's terrifying. And Lawrence Pilot apparently won't be back till mid-October at the earliest, roughly.
I talked with him at the Prospects Challenge. He joined the intermission during our broadcast on ESPN 1520 on Monday. Or was it? And either way.
Whenever it was.
Yeah, right, exactly. Anyway, when we talked to him live on the air, he looked like he was in good spirits. Like, I mean, he wasn't wearing a brace or anything. And when I asked him and talked to him a little bit, he said, "I'm feeling good. Just getting back on the ice right now, starting to feel good again." And that the timeline that the Sabres. I said this way early when they first did it, and I'm going to say it again. It seems like that the timeline that they originally posted on Twitter and put out there in their PR release, where they the wording that they had, it almost seemed like that, okay, we're expecting it to be this long, but is it going to be this long? We're not entirely sure, but this is, like he could come back sooner than we think. And with a guy like Lawrence Pilot, I think that could easily be the case, is that maybe we see him back on the ice a little bit early, maybe a week or two earlier. We'll see, and back in game action, but at the same point, you're Snapchatting.
I'm so disrespectful during the podcast.
How dare you? It's okay. But I'm
so disrespectful.
I missed, and honestly, I have to say I missed the Bogosian comment about his injury. What did he say about Bogosian?
Kruger said Bogosian's workouts have been limited to off the ice. No timeline to return yet. Should have a better idea in the coming days, but he will not be returning in, quote, the near future.
Okay, so that makes things interesting.
Also, Bogosian, I saw some photos of Bogosian at the Sabres annual golf tournament.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, he looks like he's lost some I wouldn't say weight, but like the chunk.
He looks a little leaner.
He does.
Yeah, okay.
And maybe that's because of the hip surgery. I don't know, but
right. But I mean, another question could come up, is that if he's injured for a while, does he kind of get the, I wouldn't say Roby Island treatment, where
the Matt Hunwick treatment,
where he goes on long-term injured reserve, and
he all of a sudden has a neck injury that we've never heard about that it's going to cause him to miss the year. No, I'm not saying that his neck injury is fake. I'm just saying that it's very convenient that we didn't hear about it until
right,
camp.
Exactly. But I mean, he had a neck injury last year, a neck issue that kept him out a while, and then he came back and didn't really play all that much. But it'll be interesting to see how they shake out the rest of the rosters, because again, that is a situation where
good news,
Bogosian might not be ready to go. We'll see.
Breaking news for you.
Ooh.
It's actually not very breaking news.
Not breaking news.
Zach Bogosian only under contract for one more season.
Oh, well, I was kind of
praise the Lord.
Yeah,
the hockey gods.
Oh,
for no more Zach Bogosian.
Let's see here. Matt Harris.
Ooh, what's happening on the tweet box?
Matt Harris just tweeted this. He works for CFRA Radio, News Talk Radio in Ottawa. Tweeted out a report. Mohegan Sun Casino is suing UG Melnick, the owner of the National Hockey League's Ottawa Senators, over a $900,000 gambling debt. This guy is so cheap. He's so cheap he can't pay his best players. He's also so cheap he can't repay a $900,000 debt that he has to a casino.
They need to take the Senators away from him.
They need to boycott. The Senators fans need to boycott the Senators and either tell the league, get rid of our owner, force them to sell the team to somebody who actually wants to keep them here, or just get rid of our team. The Senators fans really are not like caring. They don't go to the games anyway.
Sell the team and move them to Quebec.
Move them to Quebec. How far is the drive is Quebec City from Ottawa?
I love a good fishing trip to Quebec.
It can't be too far, right?
That's a
Google Maps. Doing a quick Google search here. This is great podcasting material. Just let's see here. Quebec City.
Quebec.
This is such terrible quality podcasting. I apologize to the people.
This is the best kind of podcast. This one is like a scatterbrain podcast, man.
Okay, that's a longer trip than I thought. Nearly 3 hours. Nearly 3 hours, according to Google Maps, the quickest route. 268 kilometers from Montreal to Quebec City. Up the St. Lawrence River. I wonder how fast it would be by boat.
Yeah, I really
There's no
wonder.
boat,
should
there's
we,
no boat option for
we
Google Maps.
Should we boat to Quebec?
If you bike from Montreal to Quebec, it's a 16-hour,
Quebec.
35-minute bike ride.
16 hours on a bicycle. Holy corp. Well, hey, back to the podcast here really quick. How long are we at right now?
Who cares?
25 minutes. No, I just want to make sure we're hitting the numbers we're supposed to hit. You know, people listen for the quality and they like the podcast. I think. Thank you for tuning in.
This podcast is sponsored by your mom.
This podcast is sponsored by beer.
Yay, beer. I can't say hooray, you know what, because then we might get trade. We
can't say the name of the Schmamuel Schmadams Schmocktoberschmest, but
nice way to pull.
That's kind of what you guys. I listen to you. I listen to you on GR. I see how you guys do it. I listen to GR for the rare occasion that Brayton will jump on the radio and say some words. He's very busy.
I'm not swearing like Howard did, though.
When did that happen?
Last week, Thursday. After the Mets had collapsed to the Nationals, the epic collapse, he went on a rant about the Mets. 10-15 minutes into the show, went on a rant. Ranting about Edwin Diaz and all the other stupid relievers.
What did he end up saying?
He dropped maybe one of the worst words you can drop on radio.
What did he say?
The F word. It kind of just slipped. Like he didn't. I know he didn't mean to, but like it was funny because a little radio story here.
We need to find this. I need to find this audio.
I'll play it for you later. It was one of those things where he was just in the moment ranting, and I don't think he really
you forget where you
realized.
are. You
Yeah, exactly. Out. And so he dropped it, realized his mistake, and quickly, like on the fly, like a professional, like kind of flipped the script and kind of like allowed it where I could go back in and edit the word out and make it sound good for, on-demand stuff. Jeremy and I both hit the dump button simultaneously to make sure it didn't go out on the live radio. However, on the radio.com app, it doesn't dump. So people listening on the radio.com app heard him drop the F-bomb. And then our Twitter feed, our text feed, just flooded with people saying like, oh my God, Howard just dropped the F-bomb 10-15 minutes into the show. This is great radio. This is better than Howard Picks the Bills.
That's incredible.
Which is not better than Howard Picks the Bills.
No, that's the best. Yeah, but looking at the Sabres again, we're this podcast is we're taking this podcast as seriously as you should take the first day of training camp lines. I think that's the best way of putting it.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, definitely.
There will be a lot more happening. We'll let some games happen. I'm going to Hawaii in a week, so
lucky you.
Thank you. Don't say lucky me. It's very expensive.
Well, I mean, any trip is expensive.
We're talking thousands of dollars to go to Hawaii. It's
to
fly to Hawaii alone there and back.
Very, very expensive.
$2,300.
Not surprising.
Yeah, so it's rough, but it's going to be a once in a lifetime thing.
Anyway,
and we'll have some hockey.
We totally like got off on the defensive track there with
we got lost.
We were talking about the defense. Sorry, again, terrible. Well,
what I was going to say is that I'll be gone, so we may not catch some of the preseason games. But when I get back, we'll definitely talk about what we've seen in camp, how the lines have developed, have any players been cut, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, we will, and hopefully we'll be able to podcast a little bit more this year.
Hey, that's on you, man. I'm free all the time.
Well, I mean,
you have 17 jobs and you work at 4 a.m. I understand.
I know. It's something we're going to have to
Brayton is a for those of you who don't know, Brayton is a ringer bartender. Where he'll go out and he'll say, "Oh, I just got to see the butt fumble. That was the greatest."
99th greatest play on the NFL Network's list was the butt fumble.
That's the number one greatest play. The butt fumble is my favorite.
Because Mark Sanchez is terrible and always has been.
Oh my God, I love the butt fumble. I wonder if I could get an autographed Mark Sanchez butt fumble photo.
Oh boy,
I'd put that in my bedroom.
So anyway, with the defensive groups though, interesting that you're looking at the second group because I think the second group is maybe a little more dynamic. where Dahlin and Ristolainen were together at first. I think Yoki Haru kind of worked in with Dahlin a little bit too.
Brayton, I think that was a 99th best play of all time, though.
Yes, all time.
Oh, well, it probably could be higher. You know what? Real quick, going off on a Trust the Podcast football rant here. Butt fumble should be the 69th best play of all time.
Nice.
As you are.
Nice, very nice. And then obviously you get Marco Scandella in that second group as well. Colin Miller was in that second group.
When did Marco Scandella become trash? Because he was not good last year. What happened to him?
Good question.
Did Space Jam in real life happen? Do they take his talents away, and he has to touch a hockey puck with Charles Barkley to get his talent back?
Well, I mean, he did have something with that, with his girlfriend or whatever. Remember?
I remember that, but if you're a piece of trash and you cheat allegedly,
That's true.
Then it's your fault.
Oh, yeah.
You can't cause harm to yourself, mentally or physically, and then ask for pity.
It's true.
You can't be like, hey, I slammed my thumb in the car door, but it was totally my fault, so feel bad for me.
Yeah. No, I mean,
job.
and I'll wrap this up here with the defensive group real quick. Obviously, like the first group was a lot of the younger guys, Brandon Montour, Jake McCabe, NHLers. Will Borgen, I think he's fringe NHL.
He's
Could be a
close.
call-up guy.
Very close.
Casey Nelson, I think his NHL days
real
are
quick.
really
Will Borgen
down.
is that first defensive call-up from Rochester. I think we can agree on that one.
Until Lawrence Pilot is healthy.
Absolutely.
But then again, you look at left side, right side, that'll also depend on that as well.
Absolutely.
And then your second grouping, obviously Jacob Bryson's going to be down in Rochester. Dahlin, Ristolainen, Miller, Scandella are probably here. And then we have to wait and see about Yoki Haru, depending on injuries and other factors that go in. Maybe Ristolainen gets traded. Now that Mitch Marner has finally signed his contract, the floodgates are finally opening around the NHL. Thank God.
I thought you were going to break a news story there.
No, I wasn't. I was just finally
By the way, I forgot to mention, happy Friday the 13th.
so happy about that. Yeah, Friday the 13th. How do you feel about Friday the 13th?
It
Are you
is
superstitious about days like this?
I'm not superstitious. I'm a little stitious.
Your dad jokes are so bad.
Thank you. I was quoting The Office, but I've had a couple beers, so I can't remember the exact quote, but I'm pretty close.
Sounds fair enough.
Thank you.
But oh yeah. Friday the 13th.
This is why you guys
So
tune in
fun.
for the great podcast. This is why, like, if we ever did if we ever did the podathon, we'd have to like hang out. We'd have to have a couch where we could just sit and drink beers and just aimlessly, because I couldn't do this in front of people.
We would have to do a super cat again.
We have to.
Remember when we did the first one?
Oh yeah,
We had a lot of good people for the
Yeah.
first one.
I remember we
Joe
did one.
Yerdon was there, Chris
Yeah.
Ostrander,
Yeah.
you, me.
I remember the one we did at TJ Leckman's house, and
Oh yeah, TJ too.
Brayton just like went off, and we're just sitting there and we're like, he's very mad about a lot of things.
When did I go off about that day?
I don't even remember when it happened.
Oh, I think I vaguely remember that podcast.
You were mad.
I think
In
I
real
was
life.
mad because of Dan Bilesma's decision, because I think Dan Bilesma was still the coach at that point. I think
That's all you need to say.
I think it was right after the bye. They had their little bye. And it was right after the bye. They went to Colorado and played. And this was like you're like a point out of the playoff race. You win this game, you're back in it, and the momentum can completely change, and you could be heading to the playoffs for the first time in a while. And they go out and they lay a complete egg in Colorado. And it was just one of those
The Dan Bilesma Sabres, they would never do that.
the damn Bilesma Sabres, don't even get me started.
We don't have
Ralph Kruger might actually be the first coach that has like a mentality of, okay, I'm going to get my team acclimated to what the players are best at.
I mean, it's nice to hear him say today that, like, I'm not their friends, I'm their coach.
Right.
That was nice to hear.
I mean, you don't want to necessarily put it in a term like Dan Bilesma was, where Bilesma literally had to be told by Tim Murray to have a cup of coffee with the players. I think Ralph Kruger
Bilesma,
will do
like,
that.
hated his players.
No, like Ralph Kruger's certainly going to do that, and people have said about Kruger where it's just like, he wants to get to know you on a personal level, and you can talk hockey for 15 minutes, but the next 3 hours you're talking, it's just about whatever in life in general. That's but to my point here, Housley was a coach that had his own system and never wanted to acclimate his system to his players. He thought his system was going to work. It got him fired. Dan Bylsma, same thing. He had his system work in Pittsburgh before with top players. It's going to work again in Buffalo. The players in Buffalo did not fit his system. He refused to change it. He got fired. And then there's Ted Nolan, who just didn't have a system. He just, go out there and play with grit and compete, and we're going to win some hockey games. Sure, Ted. Good for you.
That's why Zemgus Girgensons
was an all-star. Also because of Latvia.
Yikes, man. Brayden Point probably won't play for Tampa this year.
What's going on there?
I just read a Pierre LeBrun tweet that says, now let's see how the Marner contract impacts other negotiations. It's believed Tampa's last offer to Brayden Point was around 3 years and 5.7 per. That's like going to a car dealership and being like, hey, I want to buy this car. I got $30.
Is it?
What can I get?
Is it too late to offer sheet?
I don't know, but
I'm pretty sure it is.
Someone has to.
But holy crap, why aren't you offer sheeting these people?
That's true, because Tampa can't afford him.
And then Montreal goes and offer sheets Sebastian Aho, and they're thinking, oh man, we're back in the offer sheet game. It was a crap offer sheet.
You know, I really think that the Leafs will score a ton this year, but also probably allow a ton of goals because their defense does not seem great.
But they have Tyson Barrie.
But they have Cody Ceci.
Yeah, Cody Ceci's not good. And Morgan Riley is okay. His defensive play has been
rhymes with PP.
Okay.
Does it rhyme with PP?
I like how this podcast became like the 12-year-olds podcast. Welcome into the Sabrecast, run by a bunch of 12-year-olds, everybody.
Welcome to the Sabrecast. We like to talk about PP.
And the number 69 is really cool.
Yeah, that is very
What's 9 plus 10? 21?
The butt fumble.
Butt fumble's the 69th greatest play.
It's got to be. In my book, it is.
You know, there's probably going to be somebody that's like a Weinerline person that's
what is
just going to...
6 plus 9? 69. That's what my nephew said once. It's the truth. I asked him and he told me. He's like 5.
See, we're going to get one of those like Weinerline comments or people that are just like, oh man, you guys and your terrible podcast, you should just go back to being in your mom's basement.
I mean, I'm in my basement, but I pay for it, so
right.
I guess I can do what I want.
Right. I mean, they tell us to go back to our mom's basement at WGR.
My mom doesn't have a basement, okay? Think about that one.
Well, then you're not safe from tornadoes, Ryan. You're in trouble. At least the basement wouldn't flood, but if there was a tornado, you'd have to go hide in your bathroom and your shower or your tub and put the mattress over you. And even then, you'd be in trouble.
Well, shit.
God bless your soul. Well, you have a basement, so you're fine.
Yeah, I have a basement now. It's a pretty cool basement. It's my cat's basement, not my basement.
It's your cat's house.
She has four little cat beds in down here and a couch.
That's cute.
Yeah, she does what she wants. Sammy is the best. Anyways, this podcast is almost 40 minutes old, so we will wrap this bad boy up. We will be back sometime very soon to talk about the Buffalo Sabres. As mentioned, probably not next week because I'm going to Hawaii.
And
also, my wife is calling me, so I'm going to wrap up the podcast. I am Ryan Wolfe at Wolfe BLTD. Brayton is at BJ Wilson WGR. This has been the Sabrecast.
Bye.
You are not. Bye.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is Robbie Vegas coming at you from the All Bets Are Off podcast. If you are into horror movies, the paranormal, professional wrestling, or music, this is the place for you. We're bringing you the latest and greatest interviews in all of the above: music, horror, and of course professional wrestling. So tune in on the Gear Network. Check out All Bets Are Off. Rate us, like us, subscribe to us, leave us your comments, tell us what you think, and we'll catch you soon on the All Bets Are Off podcast, dropping every Sunday at noon.